Hey there guys, alright, today we're back with another Miscellaneous Myths by OSP. And I'm gonna be 100% real with you. I have no fucking clue how to pronounce this, so I'm not even going to try. Before we get into the video, make sure you go check out the links down below in my description box or in my pinned comment in the comment section, where I have a link to my gaming channel where I'm uploading old streams to YouTube. And then the other link, I would recommend you go ahead and follow me over at Twitch. I stream Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturdays from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time. Would love to have you come join and chat. But yeah, now that that's out of the way, go ahead and learn about this Irish mythology. I'm assuming it's Irish, just because, well, it could be Celtic is Irish. The Irish are pretty much the last remnant Celtic people. I'm assuming this is Irish. Let's go ahead and dive right in.
So today we're going to be talking about some Celtic mythology, but on the subject of Celtic myths, this video is sponsored by the Legends, Myths, and Whiskey podcast, who've released a mythosymphony of Beowulf.
Is this the
It's
first miscellaneous myth that they've...
part literary analysis.
Is this the first like miscellaneous myth that I've reacted to that they've had a sponsorship? No. Certainly they've had sponsorship slots in these miscellaneous myths before. Certainly like in the Loki one, right? God, I'm blanking.
Analysis of our favorite story of a compulsive drinker turned giant wrestler turned dragon killer, so stay tuned to the end of the video for more information. Why isn't Celtic mythology well known? I mean,
the English kind of did a little a genocide, systematic, erasing of Celtic and Britain culture. When I say Britain, I'm talking Welsh. Yeah, that happened.
Scotland and Ireland are like right next to England, and God knows England couldn't help but get their culture all up and everywhere. But for some reason, despite the cultural proximity, Celtic mythology really isn't all that widespread. Well, here's the thing. In the 5th century, Christianity steamrolled into Ireland and Scotland and proceeded to royally screw up all the local lore. Scottish goddesses got revamped as simple magical warriors or hags, while the poor Tuatha De Danann went from being Irish gods to being ancient human kings, queens, or in the fancier cases, fallen angels. Because Christianity has this thing about worshipping other gods, the local deities had to be reimagined into something that wasn't gods, but they had to do it in a way that wouldn't totally piss off the locals, and as a consequence, the mythology ended up being flattened into quasi-historical folk.
So this is actually a great point, and it's something I read about King Arthur. I read it in a book by historian Mark Morris on Edward I. And Edward Longshanks, he's the one that goes ahead and pretty much conquers Wales. Now, of course, the Normans had begun a conquest of Wales in the late 1000s, early 1100s. However, that wasn't a complete conquest of Wales, and you could even argue they didn't have control of even that part of Wales all that much. They had the Marcher Lords, and that was pretty much the extent of English control into Wales. Edward I would pretty much solidify, he would completely conquer Wales, and pretty much decimate any chance of them ever rebelling against the English crown. And what you see there is now, by Edward I's time, the nobility, the people of Europe at that time, kind of viewed King Arthur as having existed. They believed he had actually existed as a historical figure. Now, originally, in Welsh, for the Welsh, he was, according to Mark Morris, he says that if anything, he was somewhat like of a Hercules or a Woden, W-O-D-E-N, kind of figure. So he was not, he was never a character that actually exists, supposedly. Now I kind of lean more towards the idea that perhaps he was probably kind of similar to Ragnar, where he's a bunch of figures kind of melded into one to be a folktale or something like that. And then just then generations mythicized him more and more or something like that. Kind of what I'm leaning towards, but I have to do more research. But I also wouldn't be surprised if, not even based off of anyone, and he was just a Welsh deity. And okay, that tangent went on for a while.
Folklore about ancient kings or queens who just happened to have fabulous godlike power. The reason why Celtic mythology isn't well known is because the 5th century missionary efforts to Ireland and Scotland did their absolute damnedest to pretend it wasn't a mythology, and because they're the ones that wrote that stuff down, their version is what we have to go on. This makes the anthropologist in my heart very sad.
Yeah.
But the good part about this is that because the missionary efforts focused on writing all their stuff down, most of the stories actually survived to the modern day, albeit stripped of context, and little bits of the mythology managed to survive almost completely unaltered because they weren't about gods. They were about extraordinary people from the get-go. As a result, the Christianization efforts didn't squash or rewrite their stories because they weren't doing that no gods before me thing. The most notable of these cases is the tale of a magnificent human disaster by the moniker of Cú Chulainn. Now, Cú Chulainn has a
Okay, that's actually not that hard to pronounce. Cú Chulainn. Cú Chulainn. I got it.
butt ton of stories, and to be honest, it's not totally accurate to say he wasn't a god, because several scholars on the subject agree he's probably an incarnation of the warrior king Lu, a member of the Tuatha De Danann and god of all things protagonisty. Further
Sure. I totally get that, yeah.
confusing matters, Lu is also his father. Practically speaking, Cú Chulainn being an incarnation of a god never factors into the story, so we're free to pretend like this lineage makes even a modicum of sense. So Cú Chulainn starts his life with a story that has too many versions to be consistent, but it boils down to special baby conceived 3 times, dad is probably Lu. As a kid, he gets up to all kinds of adorable shenanigans, including murdering Culainn the Smith's guard dog and offering to guard his house to make up for it, earning
You killed a dog? I don't like this guy anymore. I don't like this guy. No,
him the name
fuck this guy.
Chulainn, which
Fuck this
literally
kid.
translates to Hound of Culainn, because see, he's basically a substitute guard dog. He also manages to rope himself into
Glorious destiny.
a particularly tragic prophecy at the ripe
A
old age
glorious
of 7, where he
purpose.
dooms himself to glory and fame at the cost of a very short life. Then he hulks out and kills these 3 guys, but is brought down by the power of boobs. Oh, the hulking thing isn't just hyperbole. Cú Chulainn has this thing called a warp spasm, where his body kind of turns inside out and he turns into this giant pile of sinew and rage, and then
What the fuck?
kills everything. Metal. The boob thing isn't hyperbole either. The men of Ulster had to calm him down somehow, so they embarrass him with boobs and then dunk him in a barrel of water until he changes back. I wish more
Oh, what?
The men of Ulster had to calm him down somehow, so they embarrass him with boobs and
Embarrassed with... Huh?
then dunk him in a barrel of water until he changes back. I wish more characters used this tactic when their friends turned evil. So Cú Chulainn gets a little older.
This story just... It took a turn I wasn't expecting, and I'm confused.
And becomes a really pretty teenager, so all the Ulster dudes
Cú Chulainn, you need a fiance. Aight. But why?
decide they need to marry him off as soon as possible or he'll start magnetically attracting all their wives and daughters. So Cú Chulainn is obviously down for a bride, but he's got his heart set on a very specific bride, Emer, the daughter of the sky
Borgol Monarch. Emmer.
Forgal Monarch, who doesn't want a great hero for a son-in-law for some reason, and as always happens in stories like these, sends the lad off on a
Hey kid, you like proving yourself? Oh, do
quest
I?
in the hopes that it'll kill him. In this case, he suggests that
Wow.
Cú Chulainn go and train with the warrior goddess Skaha on the Isle of Skye. So Cú Chulainn trains with Skaha, an impossibly badass warrior woman who teaches him how to use this absolutely terrifying spear called the Gae Bolga, which you stab someone with.
Gae Bolga. Spear of mortal pain. Crazy barbs carved from the bone of that word. Thrown by the foot. What? Kills instantly. Nice.
And then it snaps out these spines, and frankly, it sounds like cleanup alone would make it impractical to use, but whatever. Also training under Skaha is the warrior Ferdiad, who becomes close buds and battle brothers with Cú Chulainn. So Skaha mentors Cú Chulainn and Ferdiad and trains them in the art of war. But unfortunately, a dark shadow from her past comes back to haunt her in the form of, and I'm not making this up, her evil twin sister Aoife. She knows that fighting her sister might end up killing her, and she doesn't want to involve the children in her personal battles, so she slips Cú Chulainn a sleeping potion to keep him safe and out of the fight. But in case Cú Chulainn wasn't anime protagonisty enough yet, he sleeps off the potion in less than
Refreshed and ready for more training.
an hour and dives into the fray to help. He ends up defeating
Is that your chariot going over that cliff? Winky, no!
Aoife with the old look behind you trick and spares her life, on the condition that she call off her blood feud with Skaha and also have his kid, which she does. Cool. How old is he again? So Cú Chulainn
Huh? That skipped a few steps, I feel like.
returns home, now like 3 times as badass, to marry Emmer, but unfortunately
Hey, I need to marry your daughter. No.
Forgal still doesn't want him to marry her, so Cú Chulainn storms the castle, kills a bunch of guys, and runs off with Emmer.
Jesus Christ.
And then Forgal dies. I love fairy tale endings. Now, the chronology is a little screwy, and at some point Cú Chulainn unknowingly kills his son because Aoife forbade the kid from telling him his name, and Cú Chulainn doesn't respond to being denied well. But when Cú Chulainn is 17, he ends up having to single-handedly take down an entire army led by Queen Maeve, who's invading Ulster to steal a prized bull. Priorities, lady. The single-handed part is because the Ulster army is incapacitated thanks to an ancient curse from the goddess Macha, who'd been forced by the king of Ulster to run a
Show 'em what for, dear.
foot race against horses while pregnant with twins. She won the race, then cursed the men of Ulster to suffer from labor pains in their hour of need, because seriously, dude, dick move.
That was a
but
dick
because
move,
Cú
yeah.
Chulainn was just 17, you know what I mean, he didn't count as a man yet and was free to fight. So Cú Chulainn holds off the army and then invokes the right of single combat and fights Maeve's army one at a time over the course of several months. In true protagonisty fashion, despite rampant cheating from Maeve's armies, Cú Chulainn continues to flawlessly hold them off for quite some time. After a little misadventure with the goddess Morrigan, Cú Chulainn ends up facing down a significant portion of Maeve's army all at once, armed only with 2 spears, a sword, and a shield, and he ends up getting severely
Alright, buddy. You should see the other army.
injured as a result. However, upon seeing the shenanigans he's been getting up to, Cú Chulainn's father Lou pops out of fairyland to give him a hand. So Lou is like, "Hello, Cú Chulainn, it is I, your fairy dad mother," and then knocks him out
Your fairy dad mother.
for 3 days so he can heal him with magic. But
Bonk.
unfortunately, there's still the army thing, and in the absence of Cú Chulainn, the only people who can fight are the Youth Corps, a group of young royal children being trained as warriors. Unsurprisingly, they all die.
Yeah.
So when Cú Chulainn wakes
No. Wow, sending children to fight went badly. Shocking.
up and learns all his little buddies are dead, he warp spasms like he's never warp
Oh.
spasmed before and slaughters a large chunk of the enemy army as
That's actually fucking horrifying. I think my face is covering the true horror. No, it's not covering. My face isn't covering the whole thing. It's still fucking.
payback. Then they do the whole single combat thing again, culminating in Cú Chulainn having to fight his buddy Ferdiad from back when they trained together
No.
under Skaha. Very sad and all that. He ends up having to use his ultimate secret technique, the Gaia Bolga, to take down the battle brother he once trained beside. This is also when we see exactly what the Gaia Bolga does. See, you throw it with the foot at the intended target, and then once the Gaia Bolga enters the body, these barbs explode outward and spread through the veins and arteries until Ferdiad is basically a thorn bush with skin.
That's disgusting.
Metal. So yeah, Ferdiad dies, and the men of Ulster get over their collective labor pains and actually start contributing to the battle. Now, in
Nice.
some versions,
Thank-
this is where Cú
maybe.
Chulainn dies of injuries sustained fighting his battle brother. In
Oh.
another version of his
And he just tanked 29 right hooks? Who does that?
death story, Queen Maeve conspires with this guy Lugaid to have Cú Chulainn killed. First, they need to
Some roasted fight over you, young man. Oh, thank you so much.
break his guys on not eating dog meat, which weakens him spiritually. Then Lugaid uses these 3 magical spears to kill first his charioteer, then his horse, and then him. Cú Chulainn,
Oh.
however, doesn't go down easily, and ties himself to a standing stone so that he can face his enemies on his own 2 feet, even after death. In
Okay, that's pretty fucking badass.
this case, his enemies don't believe that he's dead until a raven lands on his shoulder, at which point Lugaid goes to cut off his head, at which point Cú Chulainn explodes with holy light and his sword falls down, chopping off Lugaid's hand, because even in death, Cú Chulainn will ruin your day.
That's fucking badass.
Metal.
Cú Chulainn really didn't get to do much before biting it, but at least he left behind a good-looking corpse.
So if the last thing
Red, that's
that
fucked up
I
to
do
say. The battle between Cú Chulainn and Ferdiad is actually pretty
breathe
heartstring tugging, since they slowly grow apart over the course of the days they fight, going from almost playful banter and sharing a campfire to full-on rage-fueled attempted and not so attempted murder. Neither of them wanted to fight, but Ferdiad was more willing to sacrifice their friendship. Most representations of the aftermath show Cú Chulainn cradling his fallen former friend. How's my emotions? Queen Medbe is a big ol' meanie. He is. Drawing the Riastrad was fun. I hardly ever get to draw a grotesque creature. But Warp Spasm Cú Chulainn is about as grotesque as it gets. And this song is a little higher than I can comfortably manage. I don't know how the boys at Imagine Dragons do. This has been an overly sarcastic production. Well done, well done. This one was weird, and I definitely feel like Red was jumping, skipping some parts that I think would have been nice to maybe have a little bit more explanation towards, because it seemed like, I think this is one of their older miscellaneous myths. I don't know, this just felt like there were a couple moments where it's like, oh, so that happened? I don't know, I feel like some things were mentioned that were fairly important plot points that I think maybe should have been expanded upon a little bit. This is like the first, I think, miscellaneous myths where I'm saying this. This one felt short. I think this one could have been way longer. Am I alone in this thought process here? Let me know. But that was Miscellaneous Myths, Cú Chulainn by Overly Sarcastic Productions. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.